Alright. Thank you for watching my thoughts about a debate. It was Hugh Ross versus Victor Stenger. It was an hour and a half long approximately. The video is longer than that because there's a question and answer session with more than just them. And I watched a question and answer session before. But here are my thoughts on the debate. I started this debate thinking I was going to disagree with Hugh Ross on everything. I didn't disagree with him on everything. But Hugh Ross started off on the wrong foot to get me to have respect for him, disrespecting intelligent design. That is science. Now, saying who the designer is, that's not so scientific. For example, I can know if I see a gun that it was made. It's not the result of earthquakes and volcanoes. But do I know by looking at the gun if it was somebody trying to supply a criminal organization, or a corrupt army, or a good army, or a civilian? I don't know about the gun. So, science has its limits on what it can do for us. Hugh Ross said design isn't in dispute. Wow, what world is he living on? Richard Dawkins wrote an entire book trying to explain how things aren't designed even though they look designed. It's in dispute whether things are designed or not. Okay, the Hebrew word used for create in the first chapters of Genesis, most of what Hugh Ross said was wrong. I understand differently. He said it means to create out of nothing where there was nothing. I've heard differently than that from other people. And it's bara is the word, and it means to, it's the same word you would use if you're cutting wood to make something. You're working with what's there. Alright. Hugh Ross, I think, is trying to find meaning in some parts of the Bible where it's not trying to give us details. For example, Genesis 1:1, Hugh Ross is eager to find a singularity in the Bible. Okay, God made the heavens and the earth. That is not telling us that God made the Big Bang. That's just telling us God's taking credit for it. That's not telling us how he did it. Alright. One thing that annoys me is inconsistency. Hugh Ross doesn't want to take the Bible literally when I think it should be taken more literally. Or when I think it's probably literal. But in the Psalms, it says something about the heavens being stretched out. And Hugh Ross is certain that that is God telling us about the distance between the stars. Really? Let me work on my background noise here. I did not realize that my dog got put out after I... Alright, come on. Get in. Okay. Now we won't have my dog in the background whining and barking to come in. Okay, so stretched out the heavens. I'm sure that is not something we should take literally. I'm sure, I think it's in Psalms where it says God stretched out the heavens. That means God made the heavens. God made things. And now, stretched out is probably a poetic way of saying he made it or put things there, because if you're making a bed or a table, I'm sure tablecloths existed in the time of Psalms. I don't know how common they were, but tents, all of those things. You stretch something out to make it, and it goes over something you're stretching out. Well, if you're down here on the earth looking up, the heavens is up above you the same way a tent would be above you if somebody stretched a tent out. Hugh Ross is eager to talk about dark energy, but dark energy, to the best of my knowledge, doesn't really exist. It's a theory because some calculations were not making sense by physicists and cosmologists. And so they posited this dark energy that they can't measure, but they know it's there because their calculations about how fast the stars are moving or something like that would not be true without something else that they can't see. Hugh Ross is talking about the multiverse. Multiverse, oh my goodness, that's so unscientific. There's another universe we can't see. And the multiverse is, some people that like to talk about the multiverse like to talk about it so they don't have to give God credit. You know, the odds of life happening are extremely small because of all the chemicals you need to come together to make life. They don't come together on their own. And, you know, that exact combination of chemicals, it's extremely unlikely. So, see, some people like the multiverse because then God didn't have to make it. It's low odds, but that's because there are an infinite number of multiverses, of other universes where things didn't work out and there isn't life. I do give Hugh Ross credit, and a thumbs up to this thing he made, point he made. There are cosmic design features. There are features of design in things like the movement of the stars, the planets, how far away the Earth is from the sun. You know, get a little bit too close and we'll be burning up. Too far away, we'd be too cold. Either one of those instances or hypotheticals would cause no life to be here. One thing that annoys me, if you heard Hugh Ross say before, that it takes 14 billion years to create things. Wow. Hugh Ross does not believe in the God of miracles then. If I ever find out that God really took 14 billion years, so it looks like he didn't do it, I'm going to take a time out. I believe God makes miracles, does miracles, and did not need billions of years to make this earth. And there's no evidence for billions of years. There's some name calling. There is supposedly some radiometric dating techniques, but those all have faulty assumptions. And there are other dating techniques that show things to be younger. Hugh Ross mentioned fine-tuning, another part of what he said that I'd give a thumbs up to. Alright, one of the most stupid things maybe one of the most stupid things I've ever heard people say is, if there's life found on other planets, that would disprove Christianity. Or the Bible tells us there's no life on any other planet. The Bible doesn't tell us that. The Bible is this thick if you've got a concordance and footnotes. It's this thick if you don't have that. The Bible is not telling us about every single person on this earth even, let alone in the whole universe. So that is ridiculous to claim the Bible says there's nothing. It doesn't tell us whether there is or isn't. Some other revelations God gave clearly let us know there is life on other planets that God made. But even if there is life on other planets and we find it, that won't disprove the Bible or Christianity. The same God that made this one, unless somebody doesn't believe God's powerful, could have made life on other planets too. Imagine that. You know, one way to look at this is, if something has low odds of happening and it happens a lot, that just proves that there was some intelligence controlling it. You know, imagine somebody's at a shooting range with a gun. Well, if that gun is put into a device that randomly points it in any direction, you might not get the target hit at all. You definitely won't get a whole bunch of shots together in the middle of a target. But if you see a target at a shooting range that has a whole bunch of shots together in it, you know there was an intelligence controlling those shots to make them go there. So the same God that can miraculously make life here when it won't happen without him doing it, can do that on other planets. Alright. Hugh Ross said, science is proving the Garden of Eden theory. Wow. I didn't hear that before. I don't spend vast amounts of time reading scientific journals, but what little bit I've read does not show that. Oh, more background noise from Mutts. Okay, she stopped barking. And Hugh Ross, well, he started off putting down intelligent design. Further on into his opening speech was talking about intelligent design. Wish the guy would be more consistent. Hugh Ross did make one good point. There has been a study about E. coli where they're seeing how much they were selecting the different E. coli. They're trying to encourage natural selection and evolution. After 20 years and 40,000 generations, which should be enough time to get it to become something else if macroevolution was true or could be scientifically proven, they were still E. coli. Let's see. So one thing Hugh Ross said was the reason that the E. coli didn't turn into something else, and the reason that things don't turn into something else now, is we're not during the creative period. What difference does that make? And, wow. Does Hugh Ross not believe in miracles? Maybe he doesn't. Does Hugh Ross believe that a human a billion years ago could do a scientific experiment and get E. coli to turn into something else? Wow. If that's the case, then we don't need God, and there's no God, I would say. Alright, Victor L. Stenger started off his comments, his first part of this debate. He liked to talk about peer-reviewed stuff. That's a really bad, how do you call it, proof. If it's not peer-reviewed, there have been scientific theories that, while being completely true and accurate, and now we know they're true, people have been ridiculed and fired and killed over them. There was a guy in Europe somewhere who, a Jewish doctor, ordered every doctor in his hospital to wash their hands after they touched a dead body. And more people survived in that hospital, and he ended up getting fired for what they thought was a stupid, bad, unscientific idea. So peer review just means popular opinion. That's not proof. That's not scientific proof. Victor Stenger said the laws of physics were man-made. No, they aren't. Oh my goodness, that is a very stupid thing to say. The laws of physics are not man-made. Now, the words are written by people, but physics is the science of understanding how and why things move. And that's not man-made. There's, measuring gravity, measuring how fast something falls is physics. That's so stupid to say. It's man-made when there's no man, turning a dial to make something fall slower or faster. It's just finding out what happens. You talked about people can calculate things that don't exist. Nope, if you calculated it, it existed. So he's talking about some theoretical physics or particle physics. No, he talked about imagining things. That's not science. Science is learning, understanding by testing and observation. It's not imagination. Imagination is storytelling or philosophy or religion, but not science. Let me see. Note, I wrote universe before Big Bang. Oh, Victor Stenger wants us to believe something about something before the Big Bang. That's philosophy or religion. That's not science if you can't show it, if you didn't see it, if you're not quoting somebody else who saw it. I'm skeptical of the survey he cited. He didn't put a link. But Victor Stenger claimed there was a survey where most Americans are actually deists, meaning they believe God made things, but he's doing nothing for us now. I'm skeptical that survey is true. I'm not saying that it's definitely not true, but I'm skeptical that there are that many people that believe God just made things and doesn't do anything now. Just in case you're wondering, I'm certain God lives. I talk to him frequently. He talks back. He answers my prayers. I've seen some miracles happen in my life and surprises that help me. Sometimes, Victor Stenger said the universe is not fine-tuned. He's definitely wrong on that one. Now, more thoughts about things Hugh Ross said. Alright. The last time I talked about Hugh Ross, somebody in the comments section told me to lay off the caffeine. I'm not a coffee drinker. I just get very excited sometimes when people say things that make no sense. Hugh Ross said there are 25 creation accounts in the Bible. No, there aren't. I love the Bible. I've looked through it. There are not 25 creation accounts. There's Genesis 1 and 2, and that's the only ones I can think of. I'm certain at least one of the things that he thinks is a creation account is in Psalms, and I've read it to see if it really is a creation account. It's not a creation account, it's praising God, and it's talking about what God did after the worldwide flood when Noah was the living prophet on the earth. Now, Hugh Ross disbelieves, this is an example of Hugh Ross not taking the Bible literally when it says the whole world was covered. Hugh Ross thinks the whole world means something else when it describes the flood in Genesis. And when Noah was a prophet, it's about 11 or 14, chapter 11 or 14. But this one in Psalms is describing God, getting the water out of the way after the flood so people could live on the earth again. Now, some of these creation accounts that Hugh Ross is citing are giving God credit, and they're praising God for it, but there's a big difference between, yay, God made it, and here's how God made it. Just like, think of a sports fan. Imagine there's somebody whose favorite basketball team is, are there basketball teams? Oh, the Philadelphia 76ers. Woohoo. Some overpriced, overpaid people doing nothing important for us. So imagine somebody's a big fan of the 76ers. There's a difference between them saying, wow, so-and-so, I can't even remember names of anyone on the team because it's so unimportant. But imagine I knew somebody's name on the Philadelphia 76ers and I said their name. Wow, he's so great. He's the best. Okay, and that's just praising. That's not giving details, Now, if imagine I say, well, last night's game, he got 10 points, 5 assists, and 10 rebounds. In the fourth quarter, or on the first play of the fourth quarter, he did a reaching sideways bounce pass that set up his teammate for a slam dunk. That's how. Just see the difference between how and just, hey, somebody did something. Great. Alright, Hugh Ross said he searched in a lot of religions and tried to understand a lot of them. There are 4 Mormon accounts. First problem with you on this. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is a Christian denomination. So he should have included us when he was talking about Christianity. But he accused one of those accounts of being plagiarized. And wow, that doesn't make sense unless he doesn't believe it's true. If somebody is reporting on an actual event, it's not plagiarism if you get your facts straight. So Hugh Ross is either an extreme butthead, an extremely less effective person, or he doesn't really believe the Bible is true. Because it's not plagiarizing if you get your facts straight. You would not be able to accuse somebody of plagiarizing a history book about World War II if they say Pearl Harbor happened in 1941 and that the D-Day landings happened in 1944. That's not plagiarism because it really happened. Now, it is plagiarism if something didn't happen, a fictional story. It would be plagiarism if I copy the Twilight books and write my name on it and say I wrote it. It would be plagiarism if I copied the Twilight books changed the names of the characters but kept everything else the same, where they did it, what they did it, that would be plagiarism. But not giving an account of something that actually happened and keeping the facts straight and getting the facts right. Alright, Victor Stenger said something about molding readings? Oh crap. I should have written a bigger note on this one. I wrote a thumbs up, so Victor Stenger said something good. And shoot. What was it? Moulding readings. Oh. Let's see. Hugh Ross, in my opinion, failed to reconcile Genesis 1 and 2 the way I understand those accounts to be. My understanding of Genesis 1 and 2, how I reconcile them because of the scriptures that God has given us through his true prophet Joseph Smith Jr. Genesis 1 is the spiritual creation. So planning and or creating the spirit bodies and the spirits that were going to be involved in this earth. 2 is the actual creation, when the physical was created. So Hugh Ross said the Bible predicts scientific discoveries. No, it doesn't. At least the things that he was thinking of it was predicting, I'm sure it did. Now the Bible is true, as far as translated correctly. It's the Word of God. It makes predictions about things like Jesus Christ sacrificed for us, Jesus Christ's second coming, Jesus Christ calling a prophet and establishing his church before his second coming. Jesus Christ giving us a new book of scripture to go along with the Bible before his second coming. Now those kinds of predictions the Bible makes. But the Bible was not making predictions about physicists understanding things correctly. I'm sure the Bible is not prophesying that. Victor Stenger spewed some bullcrap out of his mouth about the God of the gaps. Now, in Victor Stenger's defense, there have been times in world history when cultures and people have, saw lightning come from the sky and said, how'd that happen? There must be a God of thunder. And explained, and rain came from the sky. There must be a rain god. And did fill in the gaps with gods. But that's not every belief in God or every person. Let's see, Q&A, good summary of intelligent. Victor Stenger did give a good description of the theory of intelligent design in the question and answer section of the debate. Then he failed to properly recognize he failed something about intelligent design. Well, then he dismissed it or explained why it was wrong, but he did not do a good job of explaining why it was wrong. Hugh Ross, origin of life. Okay, one thing Hugh Ross said right, that the origin of life is harder for atheists to explain. But Hugh Ross is like saying everything about the timing of it that the atheists say, except, well, God did it. It doesn't make sense to me. Okay, Moulding readings. Okay, Victor Stenger said the gaps, the God of the gaps, when he says gaps, he means the God of the gaps. The gaps are getting smaller. Actually, human understanding is getting bigger, and the proof that God made this, and it couldn't have happened on its own without God making this Earth and this solar system, and that is becoming even more proven as we get more knowledge that there has to be an intelligent designer and or creator behind this. So the gaps in human knowledge is getting smaller, but that means we're focusing in metaphorically and seeing God there if we're honest with ourselves. And alright, Hugh Ross denounced the Ben Stein movie. I'm sure they're talking about Expelled, No Intelligence Allowed. Here's one reason I don't find Hugh Ross to be a respectable person. he denounced a movie that was... Everyone should be worried about scientists and doctors being punished for their opinions. As long as they're doing good science, as long as they're not lying about what the machine says or lying about what the thermometer says, their personal beliefs shouldn't matter. And Ben Stein documented people being put on academic probation or fired from being doctors or scientists or museum curators, or people attempting to get that happen. One of the doctors in that movie did keep his job as a doctor, but people tried to get him fired because of his personal beliefs about whether the religion of evolutionism is right about how things got here, or there's another explanation. That is ridiculous, to denounce that movie and claim to be a Christian, or claim to want... An atheist scientist should be disturbed by persecution of people for their personal beliefs, as long as they are not lying about what the thermometer said, etc., etc. Hugh Ross bragged about how people from his group get to speak on college campuses and they don't have problems. Wow, well, maybe that's because the devil's not fighting against him. Maybe he's giving the devil what he wants in his theories. But that does not... Hugh Ross made it seem like that proves that young earthers are crazy crackpots who shouldn't be listened to, and it's good to fire them and not let them be doctors. Doctors. One of the people in the Ben Stein movie was a doctor. What does that have to do with your personal beliefs about how things got here? As long as you're prescribing the right medication and not looking at a bacterial infection and saying that's cancer, or looking at cancer and saying that's a bacterial infection, what difference does it make? Alright, so those are my thoughts on this. I remember yet, why did I write Moulding Readings? Alright, thanks for watching. You have a good day.